Okay, so let's get started. Hey everyone, my name's Willem. If you're a fan of my Blauberg snake rescue page, you may have seen some of the videos of the snake capture and relocation that I do in the area. Every time I capture and relocate a snake for someone, I try and do a little bit of education as well. Thank you for that, Karen. Karen says she can hear me loud and clear. So every time I capture and relocate a snake for someone, I try and do a little bit of education as well. Firstly, in person, where I tell the person who called me about the snake and about snakes in general and snake safety and what they need to do if they see a snake in the future and so on. But secondly, when I record a video of the release, I usually talk a little bit about the snake as well, just explain their habits, whether it's venomous or not, where they're often found, what they look like, things like that. And I often hear the same kinds of questions from people. So I thought I'd do a live session like this where you guys can ask me anything you'd like to know about snake safety and about the snakes that we get in our area, in the Tableview, Blauberg, Melkbos area, and about what to do if you see a snake, or if you or a friend or your child or a pet is bitten. I'll try and answer as best as I can. There are a couple of topics that I'd like to talk about, and then afterwards you guys can ask me any questions, okay? If you want to ask a question, you can just post it as a comment on this video. I can see all the comments as you post them, and at the end of the video I'll look through the comments and I'll answer all of the questions that you had. I've scheduled 30 minutes for this session, but if you guys have many questions and we go over that time, I don't mind at all. I'm happy to do that. Okay, so let's get started. Let me just grab my notes here. So firstly, I want to talk about what we as snake catchers do. There are a couple of us in the area, and there are several of us in Cape Town and many of us in the country. Even just in the Tableview area, there are a couple of us. There's me, there's Barry, there's Wade, there's Johan, there's a couple of other guys, and we do this not just for the nature conservation aspect, but also as a community service. It's nice to be able to help people out if they find one of these reptiles in their house or in their garden and they don't know what to do and they're worried about their safety and so on. Nature conservation does play a big role here as well, though. There are many myths and misconceptions about snakes, and because of that, a lot of snakes get killed, or people do many wrong things to try and keep the snakes away, or if they get bitten, they do the wrong things instead of going to a hospital and seeing a doctor. So we try and educate people as well. And many harmless snakes are killed. There are a couple of snakes in our area that are venomous. There are only about 4 snakes in our area that you need to worry about, and I'll tell you about them now. But even the harmless ones are killed. And there are snakes, there are many snakes that can do absolutely nothing to you. In fact, they're beneficial. For instance, just the other day, I caught a egg eater out in Platter. It's a small little snake that, sorry, not an egg eater, a snail eater. It's a small little snake that you can find in many gardens, and they eat the snails and the slugs. They follow the slime trail until they get to the snail, and then they pull it out of the shell and they eat it. And they're also known as the gardener's friend, because if you're a gardener, you kind of want these snakes around. They're going to help you. Now, a lot of people who I say that to, they kind of freak out a little bit. They don't want any snakes around at all. But I think a big part of that is due to a lack of knowledge and just a lack of understanding about snakes and about reptiles in general. So I said that there are 4 snakes in our area that you need to worry about, and by our area I don't just mean Tableview, I mean Cape Town in general. There's the Cape Cobra, there's the boomslang, and there's the puff adder. Those 3 are venomous. Then there's the mole snake as well. The mole snake is not venomous, but a lot of people think they can pick it up and play with it. In fact, they can be vicious, and they can give you quite a bad bite. You may have to get stitches if one of those guys bites you, and then you need to worry about secondary things like infection and so on. I see I have a question from Carla here. Is it true that you need to stand still when you see a snake, or should you run? So I'm going to talk a little bit about snake safety later on, but if you see a snake and you're unexpectedly close to the snake, don't jump away or run away. Try to slowly back away, because most snakes can't see you very well unless you're moving. Snakes react to movement. So if you move quickly, they're going to react as well. If they think you're a threat, then they may try and strike you, or they at least may try and scare you off. Whereas if you stand still and then slowly back away, most snakes will immediately try and go the other direction. Remember, we're much larger than them, and so they're very scared of us. If you give a snake any chance to get away and go and hide somewhere, it's going to do that. You guys can take a look at the latest snake capture video I posted from, I believe it was Sunday, for example. It was a very, very angry Cape Cobra. He was angry because he was in a bin for a while and it was a hot day and so on. But I went and picked up this Cape Cobra from someone's house, and it was huffing at me the whole time. It was striking at my snake hook, all kinds of things. But the moment I took it out of the bin and I put it down on the ground right next to me, it immediately bolted into the bushes. There is no snake in South Africa that will chase you or try and attack you or anything like that unless you give it reason to. So back away slowly and don't throw anything at the snake. Don't try and hurt it in any way. Don't try and capture it in any way. Back away slowly. And if you stay at a distance of 5 meters, you're perfectly safe. We don't get many spitting snakes around here. They're mostly in other parts of the country, but even with spitting snakes, if you're 5 meters away from the snake, there's absolutely nothing that it can do to you. They can't spit that far, and a snake that doesn't spit, that just strikes, they can't strike that far. So back away slowly, stay 5 meters away, and then you call a person who can come and safely capture the snake for you. It's a good idea to keep an eye on the snake until that person arrives as well. These snakes are very, very sneaky, and especially with something like a boomslang, which is a very fast snake, they can disappear in the blink of an eye. So when you call a snake catcher, you need to keep your eye on the snake and keep watching it until the snake catcher arrives, and then show him or her where it is, and they will go and capture the snake for you. If you don't keep your eye on the snake and you go and wait in the house, for instance, then by the time the snake catcher gets there 10-15 minutes later, that snake might be far gone. And even though we can search the garden and look at obvious holes and so on, it's not guaranteed that we're going to find it. And obviously you want the snake away, so just back away, keep your eye on it, stay 5 meters away, keep watching it until the guy gets there. So Ernie asks, what plants can you put in your garden to repel them? Ernie, unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do to repel snakes from your house. There's no plant or chemical or electrical or mechanical device that's going to keep snakes away. There's a lot of stuff like that you can buy online, but the only thing they do is they cause you to spend money. They don't actually do anything to the snakes. Snakes come into houses and gardens because they're looking for one of three things: either water, shelter, or food. So what you can try and do is to lessen those three things. If you have any open water features and there are frogs, for example, you might have snakes coming every now and then because of the water and because of the frogs. So try and not have something like that, especially now with the drought that we have. It's maybe sensible to not have a fountain outside. As for shelter, don't let your garden be cluttered. Keep your bushes nice and trimmed. Don't let a lot of rubble lie around. Oftentimes when people call me out to go and catch a snake, I get there and then I need to spend 30-40 minutes digging through building rubble and things like that to try and see where the snake might have possibly gone. If there's a lot of rubble lying around, there's going to be a lot of holes for them to hide in. So water, shelter, and food. If you reduce those three things, chances are the snakes won't come into your garden or into your house. Carla asks whether it's true that if you kill a small snake, its mother is going to come for you. No, that's not true. Another version of that myth is that snakes come in pairs, and if you kill one snake, the other one is going to come and look for it. The origin of that myth may be that during mating season, the female snakes leave a pheromone trail and the males follow them, but the male may not be close by. The male may follow the female and only show up a couple of hours later to where the female was. Even in a case like that, it's not the male wouldn't be coming because you killed the other snake. It's just they're looking for something to mate with. Snakes are very singular. They don't move in groups or in pairs. And so if you see one snake and you kill, well, don't kill it, please don't, but if you see one snake and you remove it, chances are there won't be another snake hiding around, especially when it's a snake like a Cape Cobra. Cape Cobra eat other snakes. They even eat puff adders. So if there's a Cape Cobra around, chances are the other snakes are going to try and stay away from that area. Sonia has a question. Do you also offer first aid courses or snake handling courses? I only see the ones in Joburg, and I would be happy to have one here in Cape Town. Sonia, I don't do courses myself, but there are two organizations that have courses coming up in both first aid and snake handling at the end of February. The first one is the Cape Repel Club. Their course stretches over 2 days. And then the African Snakebite Institute. They also have a course coming up at the end of Feb, and their course is 1 day. I will post details about all of that in the comments for this video afterwards. There's also a post I made earlier a couple of days ago on the Blaubeck Snake Rescue page, where I gave you all the contact details and things like that. But I'll put a link in the comments, and you can just go and take a look there and contact those guys. Okay, so like I said, those are the 4 snakes in our area that you need to worry about or need to be careful of. The puff adder, the Cape Cobra, the boomslang, and the mole snake. They're fairly easy to recognize, but even so, if you think you've identified a snake, you should still not go and try and pick it up or try and capture it or try and move it somewhere else. Unless you're qualified, don't go anywhere near a snake. Even if you use gloves or you use a braai tong or something like that, you can still get hurt. And something you see quite often on TV and sometimes in YouTube videos is people who capture the snake behind the head and they hold it like that. That's called necking, and that's very dangerous as well. The only reason you should ever neck a snake is if you're going to milk it. If you're going to milk it for venom. I mean, if you're not qualified to handle a snake, don't try and pick it up, even if you think you've identified it. Keep an eye on it, stay 5 meters away, call your local snake catcher, and they'll come out and they'll help you with it. Now, if you or a friend or a child or your pet is bitten, you shouldn't try and capture the snake to take with you to the hospital or take with you to the vet. What happens very often when people try and capture the snake after a bite is either someone else gets bitten or the person who has already been bitten gets bitten again, and that's just gonna make their symptoms even worse. If you can, try and take a photo with your cell phone from a safe distance, or if the snake is already dead, unfortunately, for whatever reason, you can put it in a solid container and take it with you. But otherwise, don't try and capture it. Based on the symptoms you have, the doctors at the hospital will be able to identify what snake it was that bit you, and they'll be able to treat you based on that. It's very important, if anyone is bitten, that you get them to the hospital as quickly as possible. Don't try home remedies. There are no home remedies that work. I've had a couple of people who told me that you just need to eat some activated charcoal or things like that. None of that works. You're playing with someone's life. So go straight to the hospital or call an ambulance to immediately come and fetch you. And once you get to the hospital, they'll treat you there. People have also asked me whether they should keep antivenom in their house if they live in a remote area. You don't want to do that unless you're a qualified doctor. Antivenom should only be administered in a hospital setup because some people get an allergic reaction to it. And if you get an allergic reaction and you don't have the other medicine in the machines and the knowledge necessary to deal with that, you're going to be in even more trouble. Someone asked the question whether we have any of the green snakes in our area, because her mom had a long green snake fall out of a tree in a garden in Sunningdale. It disappeared quickly. Chances are that might have been a male boomslang. In our area, the male boomslang is dark green, almost blackish on top, and the yellowish on the bottom. It could have been that. It could have been something else as well. What I've often seen is, especially if you don't deal with snakes all the time, if you see a snake, the shock is so much that the descriptions people give me of the snake they saw are usually not accurate. They misremember how long it was, they misremember the colors, all kinds of things like that. But if it was a green one, then it was probably a boomslang. Yes. Okay, so like I was saying, if anyone gets bitten, get to a hospital as quickly as possible. If you live in a remote area, it's not a good idea to keep antivenom there with you, because if you administer it, you might worsen the symptoms. Still, try and get that person to hospital as quickly as possible. If you live in a remote area, it might be valuable to do a snake handling course, just to know what to do when you see one, and also to do a first aid course. So if someone is bitten and you need to give them a CPR or anything like that, you know how to do that. I will also at the end of this call give you guys some numbers that you can call. When you get to the hospital, you can put the doctor in touch with these guys, Arnu or Johan. That's Arnu Nodia or Johan Marais. They helped develop a lot of the protocols around snakebite throughout Africa, the protocols for the treatment of snakebite. And so if you have them speak to the doctor, they'll help the doctor evaluate the symptoms, figure out what snake it was, and decide on the best course of action from there. Let me just take a look at my notes here. Okay, so, Karin, yes. Karin says it's very possible that that her mom remembered the color of the snake incorrectly because she was shocked. It's like I said, oftentimes when people see a snake, they just get a big fright and they don't really remember what they saw. When I went out to get that slug eater from Platter the other day, for instance, the people were pretty sure they saw a meter-long snake that was about this thick, and it turned out to be only this long, and it was about as thick as my thumb. So it happens. It's a very good idea to save the number of the number for some snake catchers on your phone. There are snake catchers throughout Cape Town and throughout most of South Africa, so you can go to a website that I built. It's snakeremoval.co.za. I'll put a link to that in the comments afterwards. If you go to snakeremoval.co.za and you search for the area that you're in, you'll get a list of contact details for all the snake catchers in that area. Save them on your phone under the name Snake Catcher, because in the moment you might not be able to remember the person's actual name. So save it under Snake or Snake Emergency, Snake Catcher, something like that. And have a couple of numbers, because if anyone isn't available, you've got a backup number that you can call. Most of the snake catchers in Cape Town are in touch with each other all the time. So if you call any one of us and we're not available, we'll put the message out to the other guys, and whoever is closest will come out and help you. We have a question. How does a hospital know if it's cytotoxic, neurotoxic, or hemotoxic venom if they didn't see the snake? And can it be dangerous if they treat for the wrong kind of venom? So the different kinds of venom have very different effects on humans. Cytotoxic venom is what the puff adder has, and it destroys tissue. It causes a lot of swelling and a lot of very immediate pain. And if the doctors take a look at the bite site and they see there's a lot of swelling, and you tell them you're in a lot of pain, they're going to be safe in assuming that it's a puff adder. Neurotoxic venom, on the other hand, like the Cape Cobra has, interferes with your breathing. If you start becoming droopy-eyed and you can't focus, you've got slurred speech, and you struggle to breathe, the doctors are going to know that it's a neurotoxic venom that you've been injected with. And hemotoxic is venom that affects the blood. The boomslang has hemotoxic venom. What happens when a boomslang bites you is usually 24 hours, sometimes sooner, but usually 24 to 48 hours later, you start bleeding, because the venom stops the clotting mechanism within your blood. So your blood cells can't clot anymore. Any gashes or scratches or wounds that you have, they start bleeding, and also internally you start bleeding out. So you have blood coming out of your eyes and your ears and your nose and all that kind of stuff. It's not a nice situation, but the doctors will look at the symptoms that you have, and then they'll treat you based on the symptoms. Even with a boomslang, which that has a very slow acting venom, you still want to get to the hospital as soon as possible. Don't wait until you start bleeding to see whether it did actually bite you. If you think you've been bitten, get to the hospital. describe the snake to them or show them a photo on your phone if you have it, and the doctors will take it from there. Also, call someone like Johan Marais or Arno Nodia and tell them what happened, and they will also speak to the doctor and help them figure out what to do next. There are only two kinds of antivenom. There's a monovalent antivenom, which is just for boomslang bites, and then there's a polyvalent antivenom, which is for most of the other snakes that bite people regularly, the puff adder and the Cape Cobra and the black mamba and so on. We don't get the black mamba in our area, by the way. Usually when people call me and they try and tell me what it is over the phone, it's either a Cape Cobra or a black mamba, but we don't get black mambas in our area. Okay, so let me just quickly take a look at my notes here. Right, snake courses. Someone asked earlier about snake handling courses. If you live in an area where you see snakes often, or if you just have an interest in snakes, it would be a good idea to do a snake handling course. Both the Cape Reptile Club and the African Snakebite Institute have courses coming up at the end of February. I've done both of their courses and they're excellent. You learn about the different kinds of snakes, you learn how to identify the different kinds of snakes, how to handle them if you find one on your property, what to do if someone is bitten. There's a little bit of first aid involved as well, and then you actually get to handle snakes. You need to go out and show the instructors that you know how to pick them up, how to safely put them in a bin, all that kind of stuff. And the guys at the courses there can also sell you all the tools that you need. Snake catchers usually use a hook. It's called a hook stick. You pick the snake up with that, and then you move it into a bin. And when the snake is on the hook stick, it's very easy to control it. It can't reach you and bite you or anything like that. Okay, so a couple of contact details. I mentioned Johan Marais and Arno Nodia. I'm going to put their telephone numbers in the comments on this video. Save those numbers on your phone as well. If anyone gets bitten, you can give them a call while you're on your way to the hospital and when you're at the hospital, and they'll speak to the doctor for you and make sure the doctor knows what to do. Then I also mentioned snakeremoval.co.za. If you go to snakeremoval.co.za, search for your suburb or your city, and you will find the contact details for all of the snake catchers closest to you. If you have any friends or family in other parts of the country, send them a link to snakeremoval.co.za. They can find the people closest to them as well, and tell them to save their numbers on their phone, or to save the snake removal website on their phone. So if they're traveling or you're on holiday or anything like that, wherever you are, you can just open up snakeremoval.co.za and immediately see who's closest in case you need them. I am going to do a couple of videos like this. So if you know of anyone who would benefit from a Q&A session like this, please send them to the Blauberg Snake Rescue page. I've got another event there for another session I'm going to do on Thursday, also at 8 o'clock. If they go onto the event and they just click that they're interested or that they're going, then Facebook will remind them beforehand. And if you guys found this video valuable, please go onto the Blauberg Snake Rescue page and click on the review button. Please give me a review on there. I always like getting the stars and getting the feedback and so on. I've got a question from Lona. What should we do on the platteland when we're bitten? Same as in the city, get to the hospital as quickly as possible. The reason you want to get to the hospital is if it was a Cape Cobra bite, for instance, and you're at the hospital, they can help you when you stop breathing. They can put you on a breathing machine, or the doctors can intubate you, and they can make sure that you stay alive until they can either get antivenom to you, or until they can move you to a facility that has everything that you need. When you're going to head out to a hospital, you don't have to call ahead and ask whether they have antivenom. They will transport it in if you need it. What you do need to ask about is whether they have a trauma unit. Make sure the hospital has a trauma unit, and then you should be fine. They should be able to deal with the symptoms until antivenom arrives, and then if it's necessary, they will give you antivenom. Someone asked whether there are any places that do courses for teaching your dogs not to attack snakes. Yes, there is a trainer I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but I saw her contact details the other day. I will try and find it after this video, and I'll just post it in a reply to your comment. There is someone who trains dogs from a young age. I don't think you can do it when the dog is older, but when the dog is younger, they train the dogs to avoid snakes, to bark when they see a snake, but not actually try to go and play with them. It happens often that dogs see the snakes move, and they think it's a game, and they want to go and catch them. And that's when dogs get bitten. Unfortunately, if you see that your dog has a very swollen part on his face or on his front paws, it might be that a snake bit him. So in a case like that, try and get him to a vet as quickly as possible. Okay, we have a couple of minutes left. Do you guys have any other questions for me? Great, it doesn't look like anyone has any questions. I hope you guys found this useful. Please go and give me a rating on the Blaubook Snake Rescue page, and invite your friends and family in the area to like the page as well. I do the snake rescue for free, so if you're in the area, if you're in Blaubook, Tableview, Parkland, Sunningdale, Milnerton, Melkbosstrand, and you find a snake, give me a call anytime, day or night. I'll come out, I'll capture it for you, and I'll move it somewhere else where it can safely go on its way. Thanks, guys.